You're listening to the Laugh Factory Podcast Network. For more shows, visit the podcast page at laughfactory.com.
Hey guys, it's Bill Dawes. This interview with Vanessa Johnston is maybe my favorite one yet. I think partly it's because this was our third attempt. The first attempt didn't really work out because I don't know, we weren't gelling. I think she was distracted. There was a co-host, and they didn't really hit it off. And there was also a praying mantis. The second time, I think there were a couple extra people there. She seemed kind of bored. And she's a great comic, an interesting person. And I said, well, let's just do it one more time. She agreed. And she focused. And she's got a great story. And she's a brilliant writer, a really interesting person, and you guys should definitely follow work. I think she's going to be a big star in the comedy industry. So listen to this podcast. It kind of blew me away. I hope you enjoy it. Bye.
It's the Afterlaugh. Welcome to the Afterlaugh. Afterlaugh, man. Go ahead, pull up a chair.
Hey, everyone. This is Bill Dawes. Welcome to the Afterlaugh. We have a special guest with us tonight. We have Vanessa Johnston, and this is actually Vanessa's third. This is your third attempt at the podcast. It's not been your fault, by the way. I will say that.
It's been partially my fault.
It really hasn't. The first thing that happened, I'll just tell the story real quick. There was a praying mantis on her chair. And if you don't know, if you've never been around a praying mantis, like in real life, they're fucking the most fascinating creatures on the planet. Like, they're really, really intense. So I got that she was more interested in the praying mantis than the podcast. And on top of it, there was another person involved with the podcast who you guys kind of mixed it up a little bit.
I just didn't like him.
I don't think he liked you.
That's fine.
And I think it was just because he saw you and he was like, well, I have to say what kind of happens. So she said, well, I guess because I'm conventionally good looking. Was that the phrase you used?
I don't know.
And he said, he was an African American. He said, what? I have never heard that phrase in my life. She goes, yeah, it's a common phrase. Like, nuh-uh, I've never heard that. And then from there, it just got worse. So I actually am on your side regarding that, Vanessa, because...
Wait, but hold on. I didn't just come out the gate like, hi, my name's Vanessa Johnston. I'm from Minnesota. I'm conventionally attractive. That wasn't how the conversation started. He was
Absolutely.
like, oh, he's like, you're a comedian, and, you're kind of... And he didn't want to say it. And I was like, oh, like, conventionally attractive. Like, because of the Me Too movement, a lot of guys are uncomfortable now saying a woman's attractive or whatever.
For sure.
So I was trying to, like, take the burden off him. I was like, conventionally attractive. I was like, I'm a babe. Like, I didn't say that, 10 out of 10. And it's kind of like but I don't think that was what made me upset. What made me upset was that he never met me before. He never saw me do stand-up. And he was very condescending.
Sure.
And kind of just was like, oh, no, this is why we got into a fight. We got into a fight because I had just done a show at the Improv, and you guys were like, how was it? And I was like, oh, crushed it, as a joke. And then he said to me, he's like, you must not be a very good comedian, because no good comedians say they crushed it. And so that's where the conversation took a weird turn. But why are we
That was the beginning. So we are brand new. We're wiping the site clean. We got Vanessa. You told me not to watch your set.
Oh yeah.
I watched your set, and you're great. First of all, you're a
Thank
great
you.
comic, so it was a great set. And there's something happening in comedy shows which people may or may not know about. It's called the cold open. I don't really know when that started.
It's the worst.
But when people produce or promote a show as an MC, instead of going up there going, "Hey guys, I'm the host of the show," they want to bring someone before them. It's like the comic before the MC, which is sort of against most tradition.
Yeah, it's the worst.
And it's like a 5-minute cold open.
I did 7 tonight, but yeah.
7. So, and I watched you go on, and you started with crowd work, which is pretty ballsy for a small room as a cold open. And I thought you were great.
Oh, thank you.
For a room that was very, they just got in, it was kind of small, and you were You're just right out of the cannon, just like going after people. And how do you often do crowd work in your stuff? Or are you more of a joke writer? Because you have really good jokes too. What is your focus?
I would say it's like half. I started out very writer oriented because my first 3 months of stand up, and you know what's interesting is I think I do have a chip on my shoulder just from starting as a conventionally attractive woman. When I first started stand up, I would go to mics and like comics would heckle me on stage and like tell me not to come back. And
Okay, give me a story about that. Like, lead me through the foreplay of that, because that to me just sounds unbelievable. Whenever I hear stories about comics shitting on other comics, it makes me want to like have 2,000 fists to punch people.
I mean, I was doing this spot called the Oyster House, which was like a bar up in the valley, and I was again like a month and a half into stand up, and I was on stage, and I went on stage, and then the comic went up after me and was like, Vanessa, don't ever come back here. I don't come here to listen to people like you talk.
What do you think he meant by that?
Because you're an conventionally attractive woman and I think people see it as like a place of privilege and that you don't have an opinion and that you probably never struggled. And so they just assume that, you know, whatever. And so I would get heckled off stage and people would tell me I'm bad, and comics would like the whole room would turn on me and like heckle me while I'm on stage. And I got like annoyed, and I was like, I'm gonna become really good. So I started writing 100 jokes a day, and I would study like Bill Hicks, George Carlin. I would take every single one of their jokes. I'd write out their specials. I'd break down how they make their joke.
Wow.
And for 3 hours every day, I would write jokes back over and over and over and over and over. And after about 3 months, so like I was 3 months into stand-up, I think I went back to the same place. I went on stage and I had a great set.
Yeah.
Or not great, but it was like better.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, she kind of was like not that bad. And then I got off stage and a male comic came up to me. He was like, oh, you were funny tonight. So what guy wrote those jokes for you?
Wow.
And I was mad because I put all this work in, but at the same time I was like, wait, they're so good you don't think I wrote them. That means I'm onto something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they like legitimately believed they're like, there's no way this girl wrote these jokes.
Yeah, it's a compliment in a weird way.
It was about like the Holocaust and like death and all this weird stuff. And I used to have like Holocaust rape material, like very
my
dark
gosh.
Guantanamo
And it worked?
Bay. My first half hour
Can
was
you share it?
yeah. Okay, so people, I haven't done this in so many years. Okay, so back in during the Holocaust, Nazis used to cremate Jews and use the remains to make soap, which is crazy. Why would you make soap out of a group of people who you think are dirty?
Yeah.
And then the people were like,
Ooh.
and then I'm like, and then back then, how'd you know if the soap you had Jew in it? Like, did you just have to guess? You know, you're like, man, the soap is cheaper than the others. It's probably part Jew.
Oh my gosh.
And I do like, I had this rape joke about how I was having sex with this girl, and how she was, because I'm bisexual and I dated this girl and she was really bad at sex, and I was really upset because I was like, oh, you know, she'd been molested as a kid. I figured she'd be great at sex, you know?
Yeah.
Like those piano players who started piano when they were 3.
Yeah.
That was my
I think that's a good
material,
joke.
dude. It was
That's
very like
when you're an open micer coming out with stuff that edgy
Yeah.
for a room full of comics that want to hate you. That's for those rooms are tough.
but that's the only way I could get laughter.
Sure.
Like, because no one wanted to laugh at me.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, fuck this bitch, dude.
Yeah.
Every night I got every time, and I would get up 3-5 times a night. So
Wow.
every single time people would be like, fuck this bitch. And so I had to pull the laughter out of them, out of comics, dude.
Yeah, of
who
course.
don't like laughing in the first place.
Particularly in the open
So
mics, yeah.
And a comic can control their laughter. If you don't want to laugh at someone, you can control it. So I literally had to fucking pull it out of them. So my material would be so dark. Like, you know, comics only laugh at super dark, fucked up stuff.
Yeah.
Had to be so dark and fucked up. And I would still get heckled, and then I got good at crowd work because I was getting heckled by all these open mic comics. So I started doing crowd work at open mics.
Against other comics.
Against the entire room of comedians.
Wow.
So that's kind of like where that stemmed from.
That's like Jedi training right there. What was driving you when that was happening? Because I imagine there's a lot of people who, and maybe women or just men in general, but who started that, and when that happened, they would duck out.
Oh, for
They were
sure.
like, "Fuck this."
That's what they wanted me. They wanted me to quit.
Yeah, I know.
That was the goal.
And I know some female comics who were good and coming up, and then they quit because they felt bullied either by women or men.
Yeah.
What was the driving force that kept you moving? Was it just like a need to prove them wrong, or was it something else that kind of like kept you going up 3 to 5 times a night?
That's so interesting. I don't know, dude. I don't do no. But that's a very good question.
Well, I'm going to caveat real quick because
Yeah.
just if people don't, like Vanessa also has like you have like a career in other stuff.
Yeah.
Like you're I don't know, a producer at HBO or something.
Well, I do film and television development, which is basically yes, producing.
Which is like in LA, that's a highfalutin job. I couldn't think of a
Yeah.
better word than falutin, but it's a high, it's an important job. There's some power
Which
attached to it.
also was another job that I had dudes tell me, like, when I when I wanted to be a producer, my friend David Mizell, who at the time was the president of Marvel Studios, he
Mhm.
ran Marvel for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Really smart guy. He was like the youngest person to graduate from Harvard Business School.
Wow.
Built Marvel to what it is today, basically. And I was like 19. I'm like, hey, David, I really want to be a producer. Can you give me any tips? And he was like, Vanessa, this is a quote what he said. This is not me saying you're conventionally attractive. No. He's like, I don't even like saying it because it sounds weird coming from my mouth, but he's like, you're one of the smartest people I know, but you're too pretty. And he's like, you would be a great producer, but you're too pretty and no one's ever going to take you seriously. He's like, don't even try.
Wow.
He's like, you're never going to get a job. And, you know, it has been very hard getting jobs. Like, I just started working at Imagine Entertainment like 2 months ago, which is Brian Grazer and Ron Howard's production company. And it's my favorite place I've ever worked. Like, they know I do stand-up, and they're very supportive.
Oh, very cool.
It's honestly like the best company I've ever worked for in my whole life, and everyone that works there is amazing. But I was unemployed for like 8 months. After the Me Too movement, it was impossible for me to get a job. I would go to interviews and people would see me and they're like, nope.
Yeah.
Because I was like a walking sexual harassment case waiting to happen.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard companies they expressly tell their people, they're like, we're not hiring any women. I think
Yeah.
it's kind of on the DL because that's obviously discrimination, but a lot of people will not hire women right now because they're worried, which is so ridiculous if you think about the fact, like, we can't control ourselves. We can't comment on this girl's ass. How can we hire? It's ridiculous. So,
well, the fear is that in court, because I read all these articles about it because I was so frustrated. I'm like, I would go in, this was in the summer or the spring of this year, and I went into interview with this production company, and usually you do an on-phone call first, and I was on the phone with their VP, or I can't remember. Anyway, they're like, Vanessa, your resume is the most extensive of every person we're interviewing. You're amazing. Like, you're overqualified for this job.
yeah.
And basically on the phone, it was like, crushed it. In person, I get there, and like right away, they're like, the guy told me, he's like, why don't you just go get married? Why are you trying to work for me? And I was like, no, I want to work here. This is important to me. And he's like, well, you're obviously don't you want to be an actress? I'll just put you in a movie. They were just like, we'll put you in this movie that Whitney Cummings turned down. And I was like, no, I don't want. I literally said no. I was like, no, I don't want to be in the movie. I just want to be here. And then they offered me minimum wage for a job that should have been paying like way more than that.
Yeah.
So I had to turn it down. And I got so frustrated because I was just like, dude, I am really good at my job, and I have worked really, really hard, and it's been hard doing it while doing stand-up at the same time because you're waking up, it's a 9 to 7 job, and you're doing stand-up. If you're doing it while you're getting up 3 to 5 times a night, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, and my life is good though. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's like my boss I work for at Imagine. Like, we sometimes like we'll talk and like complain about stuff. Like, oh, you have to do this and that, and it's like at the end of the day, like, we have great lives. Every comic in LA, every comic everywhere, dude. Honestly, like, you're lucky. You know what I mean? Like,
For
you
sure,
get on,
for
you
sure.
do something that's like brave, and so it's like, no, I'm appreciative, and it's like I'm fine with the negatives that I have to go through, it's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But
And you work Monday through Friday in this other job? 9 to 7, and you get out and you do 3 to 5 shows.
Yeah, I try to. I've been slacking recently. My dad committed suicide like a week ago.
Holy
2 weeks ago.
fucking shit! There's
It
a
was
left turn in the
Literally
conversation.
like a couple days before I came on the last podcast.
I'm sorry about that. Wow.
Yeah, I figured you knew. So like all over
I
Instagram.
had no idea.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a social media stalker.
Yeah. My dad committed suicide right before Thanksgiving.
Is that something that you would like to talk about? I mean, I don't know really how to address it other than like,
I don't know.
Did you feel it? Did you know it was coming? Were you really close to them when it happened, or?
Yeah, well, he like raised me. He was
Wow.
like he was cool. Like I was the firstborn, and my dad like doesn't really like women. He grew up with all boys.
Yeah.
And so he kind of like didn't really understand women. So when he raised me, he was like, "Women are evil. Don't be friends with women." Like he didn't accept that I was a woman.
Yeah.
Like, for,
so
like,
he
at
raised you to
least
be a tomboy?
100%. He used to make me like skin deer and like.
Whoa, where is this? In
yeah,
Minnesota. Okay.
I used to skin deer. It was like in our garage. And I'm like, yeah, skinning the deer and doing all this stuff. No, I was raised as a dude.
Yeah.
That's where that dudeness, I think on our podcast, you're like, where does this act come from? I'm like, no, dude, I was like raised as a boy.
Yeah.
My dad did not accept I was a woman until I was like 18. And then he was like, fuck. He's like, once he like accepted that I was a woman, he was like, we can't be friends.
Yeah. Did he ever?
He shut me out of his life, kind of.
Really?
He hates women. Hates them.
So once you kind of sprouted and got like curves, he was like, but I'm done with you.
Yeah, kind of. And then like, I don't know, dude. Like, he just, but it was weird. We had a weird relationship. Like, he pushed me to like move to LA. Well, he didn't push me, but he encouraged me. And
for what reason was your move to LA? Was it about producing, or was it about?
No, I just won this scholarship to this film school, and then I was gonna go to college. I wanted to go to Wharton undergrad, UPenn, and do the whole like business Wall Street, become president thing, and that was my dream. And my dad was just, I don't know, when I came here and I got cast on a couple of shows, he's like, this is so cool. And he was very supportive. And
so you came here initially as an actress?
No, just to do this film school thing. It was just as like a program for like a month, because I graduated high school a year early.
Yeah.
Because I started taking college chemistry when I was like 15. And so by the time I was 17, there was no classes left for me to take except for like guitar and piano. And I was like, why am I here? Yeah. So when I was a junior, I basically left. I graduated.
Yeah.
And I had a year off before going to college. And so, yeah, I went to this film scholarship just for like a month, because I get anxiety if I'm not working all the time.
That's what it sounds like.
You know?
Yeah.
Like when I was in high school, I was taking 2 extra classes, or like an extra class a day. And I was on the debate and speech team, and I was volunteering for 3 organizations. I was like working the Humane Society.
And were you
Science
doing
Museum.
that because you have a big heart, because you're like, this will look good on a resume?
Yeah, dude, I love both.
Both. Okay.
And I was on like the National Honor Society, like all these fucking clubs, dude. I was Miss Minnesota Teen USA. So embarrassing. That's a whole nother story. I did it as a joke, and then I won. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And but I was doing all that stuff, and then when I graduated, I'm like, fuck, I have nothing else to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I did this program thing.
So the program is in LA.
Yeah.
With what school?
It's New York Film Academy.
Of course,
it's like the hackiest place. It's like all, yeah.
Isn't that Mr. Me Too himself? Who's the guy who does
Was it?
The guy who did not. No, the guy who used to date Serena Williams. That fucking jamook. You know the guy who
I don't know.
the Wonder Woman lady was like.
Gal Gadot?
Gal Gadot was like, I'm not going to do Wonder Woman if this fucker's attached.
Oh.
Brett
Ratner?
Brett Ratner.
Oh, is he a co-founder of
He's like
NIFA?
one of
I
the
didn't know that.
OGs of, yeah. Anyway.
I went there for a month, and they had the acting classes, and they were like, feel, and I was like, I don't know how. Bro, because I didn't know how to feel emotions, because my mom has schizophrenia and was locked up in a mental ward most of my life.
Wow.
And then my dad is very was like, I would say I love you to him, he would never say it back. He's never said I love you to me.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Until
Not once. Never.
Wow. And did you
I'd be
tell
like,
him I love
Dad.
you? And he would just be like,
he wouldn't say back.
he'd be like, got it.
He'd be like, he's like, feelings are pussies.
Wow.
Like if we cried as kids, like I remember when I was like really little, one time I cried and he just like abandoned me at the store. No, seriously.
How old were you?
The police had to bring me home. I was like 7.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I just learned to like not have feelings. Like, yo, like he raised me as a boy, I'm telling you.
Yeah, that makes
Like,
sense.
feelings are for bitches, you know what I mean?
I get
You
that.
ain't a beta male. And like, so, you know, my dad was like that, and not abusive, like he was like kind of emotionally and verbally abusive. And then my mom, schizophrenia, and like.
So your mom was. What's your mom's story now? Is she?
She's not in a ward at this moment, but she's still kind of fucked up. Like, and my dad's viewing. He didn't have a funeral. He was like because he didn't want to in his suicide letter. But at his viewing, my mom tried to bring him back to life. She was like, he's still alive.
At the viewing?
But he had been dead for like 5 days.
Because she's crazy. I was about to say.
Yeah, no, my mom, she was like, he's still alive. I'm like, he's literally decomposing, but cool. No, so my mom, she would like out of the year, she'd be locked up for 6 of those months, basically. And so she would go into the ward for like a couple weeks. Then she'd come home and she'd be good for like a couple days. And then she'd slowly start declining to the point where she was like insane. And so I was constantly like trying to figure out where she was. And then she would get to a point where she's so crazy. Then we'd have to call the police and they would take her back to the hospital. And that was like the cycle every couple months. Yeah. So like I just got really emotionally hard. Sure. Because you had to, you know what I mean? Like you couldn't go to. Yeah, of course. Like, because I was still going to school. I was like fucking like, 7 years old. And I have 3 younger siblings. So I took care of them. So you were the
oldest of 4?
Yeah. So I raised my family, dude. I was like making food at 7.
And they were boys or girls or?
I have a younger sister and 2 younger brothers.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I just got like emotionally like kind of fucked up,
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to like feel. I felt like a robot. I felt like an alien. I didn't understand I didn't feel emotions, dude. It was creepy.
Yeah.
And I would be around people and I'd see them like have these feelings and I like it was uncomfortable because I'm like, fuck, like I don't have that. And it made me sad, Now I have it. I've done a lot of therapy to like
I was about to say, what was the turning point where it sort of, because when I hear people talk like that, sometimes I'm like, well, are you on the spectrum? Is it something that you...
No, it's not
it doesn't seem like that. So you just had really...
suppressed.
And you had to really shut that down in order to function.
Defense mechanism.
And you were probably thinking, if I get really good grades, I'll be able to make my own reality and get out of the situation.
Yeah, I didn't think like that. But, you know what? Subconsciously, for sure. But, I mean, when you're 6 years old, you don't have that foresight. You're just like, I don't have time to feel. Yeah. Because there's too much shit going on.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
At what point did you realize I'm in a really bizarre, fucked up situation that no one else is in?
Not until I was like, okay, so I did this acting class thing, right, at this film school that was just, I wasn't even trying to do it. And then the guy was like, feel, and I was like, fuck, I don't have the feelings, And I was like, I need to figure this out. Because I was like, if I don't learn how to have feelings, it's going to fuck me up the rest of my life. Yeah. I need to figure this out. So I thought that was a praying mantis visiting us. The sounds. I was like, "Bro, come back! I knew you were soulmates." And so so I did that class thing, and then I got cast in like a couple TV shows, and then
Wait, so let's stop for a second there. And granted, you're conventionally good looking, but how do you just show up in a school and you just get cast in TV shows? The people saw you at like Trader Joe's and said, "Hey, be my show."
Are you trying to?
Which happens, by the way.
Yeah, no.
How did it happen for you?
Like 2 weeks into being in LA, the people from America's Next Top Model somehow found me on Facebook, or MySpace or something. They reached out to me, and I didn't want to do it, and my dad was like, "You should do it." I didn't want to, and I hate paperwork, and so like the casting people like made me do. So I did Top Model, right?
You did what season were you in America's Top Model?
15, and like I didn't want to fucking do it at all, and like they cast me because I was in that pageant, which I did as a joke.
Miss Teen Minnesota, yeah.
Which I did as a joke because I love Miss Congeniality, and I'm not that kind of human at all. Like I've never seen a pageant, and so they cast me as this pageant girl, but I'm not a pageant girl. Yeah. Like I didn't. So they cast me this like very privileged pageant, like delusional, lighthearted human that, but they didn't know me. They were just like, oh, she's at a pageant, so she's probably something dumb pageant girl. Yeah. So on the show, dude, I was like nice to everyone, super humble and chill. And the producers pulled me aside. And they're like, hey, we cast you for personality. And I'm like, what does that mean, dude? Like, I'm not pretty. Like, what does that mean? Yeah. Like, you need to up the bitchiness. And I'm like, I'm not a bitch, dude. And I was like, I'm not going to be a bitch. I'm going to be America's sweetheart. Which isn't 100% true either. But, like, we're going to kick you off this season. We're going to kick you off this very first episode if you don't start fighting with people. I was like, that's fine, dude.
That's crazy.
Kick me off. I don't give a shit. No, but you know what? I understand coming from a development side because I worked
in of course.
I worked in unscripted for like a beat. I worked at
But that seems like that has to be against some sort of
Nah, it's your job, dude.
To say I'll kick you off if you don't fight people?
I mean, it's not the best way to go about it, but I worked at the production company that did American Idol, and so you can dance. And so, like, I've been on that side of like, because you need to make TV, and
Of
like,
course, I get that.
so it's kind of like you're a shepherd guiding sheep.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, because they have a storyline they're trying to achieve.
Yes.
And you cast people. I've been in a situation where like you cast someone to play a part because you're casting character stereotypes. So when you cast that person, you kind of try to guide them into it to follow the storyline you want.
Yeah.
So they miscasted me, and they were trying to get me, to be the thing. And I understand it's like it's their fuck up because they just assumed. So they kicked me off. The fucked up part is they still.
Oh, so you didn't decide that you weren't like, fuck it, I'll do it?
No, I was like, no.
Yeah.
They still were able to edit me, kind of bitchy, even though I tried so hard not to be. I was like, no.
Yeah.
But they still were able to get like
Of
little
course.
tidbits, which was like annoying.
How many episodes of that did you do?
Just one episode. I got kicked off the first episode, but the very first episode, they still were able to edit me in a cunty way. But they knew that it was gonna be pulling teeth every episode, so that's why they just kicked me off.
Yeah.
Because
Wow.
they were, But basically, what they did, which is like such a fucked up thing. I never did this at my last job, but you ask questions and you make them repeat the question and the answer. So like, were you a rich bitch in high school? And I'm like, was I a rich bitch in high school? And then you're like, I was a rich bitch in high school.
You're kidding me.
Nah. And
It feels like there has to be some sort of SAG rule against that.
All this paperwork that it's okay.
Oh my
Literally,
God.
you can defame my character and completely misrepresent me. Like that's a whole page of being like, you can
Wow.
make me be perceived however you want. So you
Yeah.
ask questions and then they repeat the question and then they cut out the word. So they know what they want you to say.
Yeah.
So then they ask the question to you and they make, hey, repeat this
Oh
question.
my God,
So,
that's fucked up.
Was I a rich bitch in high school? No. I mean, I grew up in white America. Everyone is a rich bitch.
But they
you know
just
what
say
I
I was
mean?
rich. Oh my God, that's crazy.
Then they cut you out, and then on the show, I was a rich bitch in high school. They're like, this
Yeah.
bitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
my friend.
This was such a tangent.
No, it's great. I love it. Leo DiTavio. Do you know him?
DiCaprio?
No, I wish. No, Leo DiTavio.
No, fuck that
The
guy.
other Leo. He's part of the Bachelor Nation, but he was on the Bachelorette season, whatever the fuck it is, and he was like a former professional baseball player. He's like this big. He looks like Jason Momoa, Aquaman, and he's had these producers. They're all really smart guys, or like Harvard guys, and they just sit there and like look at you and like, how can we create a fucking? And they'll come up and they'll literally be like Iago, like, that guy's talking shit about you. You can let him fucking.
Yeah.
So it built to a point where they created this fight between him and not Trader Joe, Grocer Joe or whatever, where Leo threw a drink in his face, because they were just like prodding him. And he has a lot of anger about it. But I imagine there's no NDA that you had to sign about it. Are you going to get in trouble for saying this?
Nah, dude, fuck that.
No, that was a while ago.
No, I'm not.
So
no.
so you had a couple. That was one. What was the other one? You said you had a couple.
Then, like a couple months later, I don't know how. Somehow I got on How I Met Your Mother as like a small guest star.
That's guest star or co-star? Because
yeah, guest. Like
guest star.
Like,
that's huge.
like an episode or two, and then I became SAG and I had an agent and it was like within 6 months of living in LA, but I didn't really want to be an actor. It wasn't like a thing I was trying to do. It was, to me, the whole journey was learning how to feel. That was the whole journey, was like having emotions and learning how to open up.
Yeah, and so tell me about that. So when was there a moment where you kind of was like, oh, I understand. Is it empathy? Is that what that means to feel? Or is it just like...
Well, I didn't know, like... I didn't really know at the time. I was in LA for like, I would say, a year or two, and after 2 years, I was training with this acting coach. His name's Aaron Spicer.
Uh-huh.
He trains Will Smith and Gerard Butler, I think. I know for sure Will Smith. Anyway, I was doing this audition where my parents died, and I wasn't reacting. And he's like, "Why aren't you? Do you care?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah, wow.
He's like, "That's fucked up." He's like, "You need to see a therapist." And I'd never seen a therapist before. And he's like, "You need to go to the therapist right now. Go to this therapist." And so when I went to the therapist, that's when I kind of started understanding my circumstances, because they were normal to me. I thought my life was normal. I was like,
sure.
Oh, like, I knew that something was like a little bit weird. I'm like, oh, like, why is everyone's houses so clean? Because I lived in like a hoarder house.
Did your mom like store her pee and stuff? Was it that bad?
There was like
schizophrenia?
feces on the ground, like rotten food. Social services would try to take us away like every other month, and then my mom would like hire a cleaning lady or something. I don't know how they did it, because if you saw it when it wasn't, I mean, it was. I went back last week.
Yeah.
My dad's suicide, and I was cleaning up their houses. I mean, it looks like a Saw movie.
Yeah.
It's really bad. Like
Yeah.
there's like feces all over the house and like just like dead rats and like bugs. I mean, it literally looks like a horror movie.
Yeah. Were your mom and your dad together when he passed?
You mean like were they married?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were married. But
So she must be in a very tough position right now.
well, they had a very strange relationship. They're both mentally ill. You know what I mean? They're like they kind of both. They had a very strange relationship. They didn't have a healthy relationship. They would fight
Yeah.
all the time. And like my first child memory is like my dad saying he wished my mom was dead and then like wanted to get divorced and my dad wanted to kill himself and like all that stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting to me about this is I have a daughter. I don't know if we talked about that, but
How old is she?
she's 18.
18. Dang, bro. How old are you?
I'm 24. I was very young. But she it was from a one night stand, and the mom is mentally ill,
Bipolar.
Bipolar with borderline. You know, it's such a weird third rail, and people don't really know how to define it. It wasn't schizophrenia, but and my daughter became an overachiever, and she kind of had to grow herself up, and she got into Berkeley on full scholarship. But the mom is now in an institution, so I'm trying to kind of like guide her through that. Maybe that's part of the reason why I find something about you really intriguing, because maybe it just reminds me of my daughter. I don't know if that's weird or not.
Yeah.
But I think because my daughter's she's a very feeling person, it leads to depression. So she went the other direction. You know what I mean? You can kind of build the wall so you can get through it. Or it can lead. Have you ever felt that like depression has been an issue for you? Or are you ever worried about the mental illness might be genetic? Is it something that bothers you? You just don't think about, or is it?
I never had depression. I think partly just because I never had time to.
Yeah.
And then I also don't think I had the genetic predisposition. I'm very conscious of neurotransmitters and chemical balances of the brain, just because I basically micromanaged my mom's mental illness since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And wait, what was the second? Not the depression. What was the other question?
Well, I was just wondering, how do you? I mean, obviously that's a huge. Most people won't really have to deal with that directly with mental illness. Is it something that like, in your therapy, you said you're not worried about being a genetic?
You said worrying about genetic
Yeah.
inheritance. So basically 25 is the cutoff. So that was 2 years ago for me. So
For schizophrenia.
For most mental illnesses, usually they develop by the age of 25. Usually most psychiatrists are like, okay, if by 25 you're not showing any signs of any sort of mental illness, you're usually in the clear. My mom's schizophrenia it's possible it's genetic, but it was the catalyst of it was doing acid when she was in college.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm very, very,
Wow.
very, I won't do any psychedelic
Any psychedelics?
drugs.
Will you do any other drugs? Will you do?
I try to like avoid. That's why when you ask if I drink, I don't really drink. I don't really do anything. I just because I was so afraid that if I did something, I've done like Molly and I've done GHB and I've drank alcohol and I've smoked weed and I'm fine. But I'll never do acid. I'm afraid to do mushrooms, just because I'm afraid there's like some dormant thing that will be activated.
Got it.
Also, there's a lot of people who have schizophrenia. I think like 75% of cases are onset by acid.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was always thinking I should do acid, because like Joe Rogan and then Steve Jobs is like, I recommend everyone do LSD. I'm like, well, Steve Jobs can't be wrong.
Yeah, it can. But the thing that my mom did, she took too much.
Yeah.
She took like a double dose of some super green acid.
So it was one event. It wasn't like a bunch of acid over time.
Yeah, it was one event. She took a lot. And the
Jesus.
thing about acid is like, it's neuroactive, and so if you take too much, it can basically sear your neurons.
Yeah.
Like burning them, like a pan. And so then they
Wow.
don't work properly, because all mental illnesses are just basically your neurotransmitters are firing serotonin, dopamine in fucked up ways, and they're not getting absorbed properly. And so it would be like as if your neurons are scarred,
Mm-hmm.
and that leads to mental illness.
Wow.
yeah.
So what was the moment where you so you went to therapy? Was there a moment, do you have a breakthrough moment where you remember where you're like, oh my God, like the Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes that day? do you have that moment? Because it seems like you say, I get feelings now. I have feelings. Is crying a part of your life now? Do you cry? So, I mean, with your dad. I mean, this is so fucking crazy. Your dad killed himself a week ago. Have you grieved about that?
Yeah,
have you cried
I was
about?
crying all week last week.
Yeah.
It was weird because I found out while I was at work on Thursday, and so not this past Thursday, but the Thursday before, and it was weird because like I was on this conference call and I saw this phone number called me and I was like, oh, that's weird. And I'm on this conference call and I always multitask, so I was listening to the voicemail while it's conference call, and it was like, hey Vanessa, it's the Wakefield Police Department. Please give us a call back. And I thought it was for my mom.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, oh, I don't want to deal with that right now. Like,
Yeah.
Whatever. You know, so I was like, I'm not gonna, you know, and oh wait. No, I see the call. Okay, so I see the call on my phone, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And I see the voicemail, and I don't listen to it. And the phone and all the lights or the internet all flicker and shut off in my office area. And I was like, oh, that's weird. So the conference call dropped. Then I listened to the voicemail, and I was like, oh, I don't want to deal with it. Everything comes back on. And then when I was like, oh, I don't want to do this, and everything turns back off. And I'm not even like a spiritual person, but it was like super weird. And and like my coworkers, I was like, dude, I think my dad killed himself.
What, you said that without knowing?
Yeah, just because all the stuff was shutting off.
Wow.
And I don't even believe in like God. I'm not even like one of those people, you know. Or I think when you die, it's just black. And I was like, I think my dad killed himself. And my coworkers were like, dude, he's fucking up the internet. go
fucking
call.
dad.
They're like, go call the police. And so I called, and they're like, yeah, your dad killed himself. And I was like, okay.
Did you know that was something that might be coming? Was he?
Yeah, he sent me. It was so annoying, dude. Like, well, he's been talking about it since I was born.
About killing himself.
Yeah. And I you know, it's hard as like a kid. Like he would threaten sometimes. Like I would go and he would like put guns to his face, his head. Like when I was a kid.
When
like,
in front of you?
Yeah, and he's like, she's like, what would you do? Like, I don't know. And I was like a kid. I would be like, he would take me out hunting with him. I didn't even kill anything. I would just sit there and I'd be like young, dude. And he done it to my siblings. I don't mind if he did. It didn't bother me when he did it in front of me, but what bothered me when I found out that like because I'm very protective of people.
Sure.
Like, I'm very protective of like anyone I care about. I'm very protective of. Even people I don't know, but if I'm like, that person's a good human. Yeah. I'm like, that person's a good. Like sometimes I see homeless people and I'm like very protective. Anyway, so like, my dad was making one of my brothers plan his suicide, and he's been doing it to him since he was 10.
Wait, back up. Your dad was making one of your brothers plan your dad's suicide?
Yeah. That's what made me upset.
And when did you find out about that?
Like a year ago.
Oh,
and,
fuck.
And my brother's 21 now, but he's really fucked up.
Well,
like,
yeah.
He's like lives in the basement. He's the only one that hasn't gotten out.
Oh, so he still lives there?
Yeah.
Was he there when your dad killed himself?
No, my dad drove his car up to like Canada, and they found him in the car. And so, but my brother, for the last 12 years, my dad has been making him plan his suicide like every weekend for the last 10 years. And he's like, how should I kill myself? Where should I do it? What's the best way? They would shop for guns. They would like plan it. And so, you know, like, and my dad would sometimes get mad at me. He's like, you're a disappointment. Like, you make me want to kill myself. Like, you're a loser.
How old are you when he was saying this?
Like, he was like, it would only be when I would like not do well on something. Like
when he would see you at an open mic or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, one time, when I got my job at HBO, which was like my dream job, he thought I was a loser because I was like quitting.
What?
Because I quit acting to work at HBO, and he like thought I was like a loser. Oh, one time I worked as a hostess at a restaurant. This was when I was an actor, because you need side money, you know.
Yeah,
and
of course.
My dad was like, my brother's daughter is going to med school. He's like, you think I'm proud to say that you're a hostess at a restaurant? And then he's like, I don't even think you're my daughter. Like when I was like, or if I got like, I never really got bad grades, but if I ever got like a B, he's like, I don't think you have my genes. Like he'd be like, you don't have my genes.
Yeah.
He would say I'm like someone else's kid, dude. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Whatever. But so he was making my brother plan his suicide this whole time, you know? And so that's what hurt me, dude, because I couldn't protect him, you know?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't there. I've been in LA for 8 years and I couldn't protect him, and that's what makes me sad because, like, I could have dealt with that, but like my brother is too sensitive. He wasn't able to emotionally shut down, and when you're in that situation and you're not able to shut your emotions down, it fucks you up.
For sure.
You know, so that's what makes me sad that I couldn't fix him. So anyway, so like last year on my birthday, my dad sent me a suicide letter, and I was camping in Lake Arrowhead. I was camping in Lake Arrowhead on my birthday, and my dad emails us a suicide letter, and I was like, fuck, dude. I'm like, not and I didn't even care it was on my birthday. He's always weird on my birthday, like he'd always like do weird stuff, like, but I was like, fuck, he'd never see me perform. I was like, dude, like, no, don't kill yourself, you know. And so the whole weekend while I was in Lake Arrowhead, I was calling the police trying to find him. And the police found him and brought him to a hospital. He'd never been committed or anything. And I was so happy because I was like, finally, dude, like, we're going to put him on, like, a medication. Because my sister was suicidal, and I put her on Zoloft, and it completely fixed her suicidal, stuff. And I was like, okay, they probably have the same brain chemistry. Like, maybe we can put him on the same thing. He'll be fixed. He can go to counseling. Like, because I know his father was abusive, so I think he has some, like, weird fucked up stuff with that. And I got him committed, and like I did all the steps, dude. I called the suicide hotline, got him on my family, like everything. He was committed at this hospital, and I called the doctors, and they were like, "You're overreacting." They're like, "He's fine. You're overreacting."
But you showed him the letter.
Yeah, we showed him the letter. I was like, my brother said that he's been making a plan of suicide for this amount of time. Like, my other youngest brother, my dad put a gun to his head in front of him, and my brother wrote about it in middle school. Like he like submitted it.
How was your summer vacation?
He was. They were like, tell a story. And my dad's like, my little brother. That's my youngest brother. He's like, when I was with my dad, he put a gun in this, and
the teachers didn't do anything. They weren't like.
They called it for count. My dad was like, oh, it was a joke. And my dad's really smart. He's a lawyer. He's like, able to talk his way out of stuff. So my dad was able to do that to the doctors. He was able to convince them that it was like. Me being manipulative or something stupid. But I was like, bro, like, I have all this evidence. I have the suicide letter.
Yes.
Like, that's not a joke. You know what I mean? Well, you think we have it shown from his email.
Yeah.
You know, and it was very extensive. Like, I want to be buried. Like, don't have a funeral. Like, put my ashes in this lake. Like, this, that. And it was dated and everything. And the doctor was a fucking bitch, dude.
Yeah.
She's like, your father's fine. You're overreacting. You're obviously living in, they're from Minnesota, so it's like Midwest. You're obviously living in LA and you don't know what's going on here.
Oh, God.
So, I think you should just mind your own business.
Whoa. What? It's your dad. It's your own business?
Yeah, bruh. She was a fucking bitch, dude. I was so mad.
Yes.
At the time, I was livid. And I saw on the phone, I was like, if my fucking dad kills himself, guess whose fault it is? It's your fucking fault.
Blood's on your hands, yeah.
It's your fucking fault, you fucking bitch. Because I've been dealing with doctors, like, since I was a baby, dude. Because, like, I would have to, the same thing happened to my mom. Like, I would have her committed, and the doctor would be like, she's fine. I'm like, no, she's not. She thinks the government's stealing all of our mail. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, yeah.
They just don't understand mental health. And, like, the rules around mental health are fucked up. Like, the patient is the person that makes the choices, not the family. And
Absolutely.
It's like, why are you asking the insane person what we're supposed to do? Yeah. Why are you asking the insane person if everything's fine? You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, somebody let my dad go. No mandatory counseling, nothing. They just
not even a 3-day hold, just like a couple hours?
He was in there for 3 days, but like no mandatory counseling, no medication. They're like, oh, take Advil sometimes. And I'm like, bruh. And so anyway, last week when he killed himself, that exact same suicide letter. Didn't even change the date. 2017, October 24th.
The exact same one.
Exact same letter. Put it in the car. Same fucking letter, dude. I'm livid. Part of me wants to call that, like, hospital and, like,
of course.
just, like,
and find that
what
lady.
can I do? You know what I mean? They don't
I know.
give a shit.
Yeah, there's
care.
nothing you can do.
They don't care. Do you know how many people this has happened to? They don't fucking give a shit.
I know.
And the annoying is I did everything right, dude. I did the little suicide hotline.
Mm-hmm.
I did all the steps. It's like, and it fucking didn't matter, dude, because it's just like, yeah, dude. So that's whatever. I don't know. That's what's frustrating.
Well, mental health is definitely the third rail of medicine. It's kind of like people don't know how to talk about it in families or in relationships. I know that with my I just have to say baby mama, but with my baby mama, she was also a very, very smart woman and very manipulative. So we'd get her, and it was really, in LA, it's impossible at 5150 anyone because they're all, I think the heat went out. You still go?
But the gas is still burning. The gas is still being released,
Got
but
it,
the
got
flame went out, and you turn the gas off.
It's really hard at 5150 anyone, particularly in LA, because it's like every actress would be committed by some director who thought she was being crazy. So I do think that we couldn't commit my daughter's mom because we'd get her to a psychiatrist and she would do it just sort of out of like, lip service, and then she would just charm the pants out of the psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
So by the end of it, the psychiatrist would be like, well, she says you guys just treat her like shit, and that's why she's acting that way, and that she's fine. That the reason she hasn't had a job in 10 years is because you guys
demotivate her.
And it makes me, it makes me think like, wow, psychiatry is a bullshit. Every once in a while on Instagram, I'll see it, and I'll just start shitting on psychiatry and like start a flame war, because it really bugs me that there is really no sort of protocol that works.
Where is she at? What does she live in?
This is a whole other story.
But she's not in the coast, right? Or LA or New York?
I no longer speak to the mother, but she went to an institution in Maryland was the last I heard of her.
So from my extensive experience as a conventionally attractive woman,
growing up rich in Beverly Hills.
So the mental health departments in Los Angeles and New York, Manhattan, are very good.
Yeah, for sure.
My sister was committed in Manhattan. They did mandatory counseling, didn't let her leave without putting her on medication. My mom was really bad most of my life, and then like 4 years ago she visited me and I had her committed at UCLA in Los Angeles. The head of psychiatry there for the school and the hospital had like a 10-year waiting list, and they took my mom on as like a case study because she was so fucked up. Took her on right away, and they fixed her. They did not let her leave. She was like, I'm fine. They're like, no, you're not. Because they listened to me. It was like the first time I've worked with people who actually fucking listened to me. And they locked this bitch up. They put her on these like shots and all this. They put her on a shot, which was really smart because then they know if she's taking it. Yeah. Because it's once a month. She has to go to the doctor and get the shot. Yeah. Part of the reason why a lot of people on medication or get fucked up is because they forget.
They stop taking it.
They'd forget one day, and then that affects them. One day you miss it, and that affects you. Then a couple of days, then they start thinking the medication's like the enemy, and it's like a spiral. So the shot was really cool, and they put her on a couple other medications. They got her really good for the first time, basically, in my life.
Wow, that's amazing.
And she goes back to Minnesota, and the doctors there like re-fucked it up.
Oh God.
Yeah, they're like, oh well, we don't think this and that. I'm like, don't fix what's not broke or something. Yeah. So at this point, I'm just like, whatever. I think so. In Minnesota, where I'm from, like those people just don't know. They don't know what's going on.
They don't know what they're doing. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of. I think LA and New York have great mental health systems.
Sure.
And they're used to working with very smart, successful, manipulative people.
Yeah.
Because think about like in Manhattan, they have all those Wall Street guys that are like master manipulators.
Yeah.
So they're used, and LA, they're used to all these actors, and so they're used to people who are good at lying.
Yeah.
And I think they see through it.
But it's very hard to get, because there's another friend of ours, a friend of the Laugh Factory. Won't name him, but he had
I know who you're talking about.
He had a break, and we tried to get him committed, and they're like, does he have a gun to his head right now? Is he in danger to himself or other people? And we're like, well, he's in the middle of the street right now talking to Vladimir Putin on his cell phone somehow. And they're like, nah, unless a car hits him, it doesn't fucking matter. So, and he's still around. And I feel like in 10 years, he'll be the guy at the coffee bean with a tinfoil hat, like asking for change. I don't know. It's very sad because I feel like, and I think it harkens back to like the 60s and stuff when women, the snake pit years, when men would put their wives in insane asylums just so they could fuck their secretary, because they'd be like,
I didn't know that's a thing.
Oh, it was an awful thing, and you could really just, particularly back in the day, men could just like, hey doc, my wife is fucking crazy, and send her into an insane asylum.
So you don't have to get a divorce.
Yeah, it was just an easy way out, because the women would probably be driven to some form of hysteria or mental illness because of what was going on, but the husband would just say this, and you could literally just commit them, and they called it the snake pit. And it was an awful time in American history, and not so distant past either. So I think they've overcorrected to the point where it becomes very, very hard. So my mom's, my daughter's mother, she finally had to voluntarily commit herself. So after this happened and your mom was fine, in Minnesota, it unraveled again, and that must have been very hard for you. How old were you when this happened?
So it's like now.
Oh, this is
like
now.
2 years ago. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, dude. So my mom's like back to being weird, but I'm just like whatever. I'm too busy. I can't keep fixing stuff. You know what I mean? I have multiple careers.
You know, it's so funny because we started. I said, what drives you to keep going despite the, I guess people get heckling at open mic is nothing compared to like the life you've had to navigate.
That's funny. I was interviewing with out of this production company, and not the one I'm at right now, but this guy told me, he's like, I'm gonna hire you, because a lot of times when you interview in creative positions at production companies, the producers ask you very personal questions.
Sure.
Like, what position do you like? No. Me too. They ask you, like, you know, what was your family like? What is your parents? Because they want to understand kind of like creatively where you're coming from. So I'm like, oh, my mom is schizophrenia. My dad's, you know, so I love you, whatever. And this producer was like, I'm going to offer you this job. You're going to do well in entertainment because you're used to working with people with mental illness.
Wow. That's a good point.
He's like, you're used to dealing with them. And he's like, that's basically all this job is as a producer, is just handling a ton of people with mental illness.
Yeah.
It's like, dang, dude.
Now, you have two paths. You have the producing, you have the comedy. Which would you give up if you had to? If you had to make a choice. I get asked that, by the way, all the time, like acting and comedy. And I probably would. I've changed my mind over the years. But so it's an interesting thought for me. This is how I test something if you really love it. Like, if someone was like, I will give you any amount of money you want. Yeah.
But you have to quit that thing. Would you do it? There's no amount of money that you could give me that would make me quit doing stand-up.
Yeah. But producing, you could quit.
Yeah.
It seems like there might be
if someone was like, I'll give you $1 billion and you need to quit producing, I'd be like, okay.
Do you feel like there's a point in the near future where you might have to because your stand-up career is kind of taken off?
You know, it's Brian Grazer. We had a meeting last week, and he's like, Vanessa, he's like, what point in your career are you going to hit where you're like, fuck, imagine, and you just leave? Because that was a fear when I was hired. They're like, are you going to leave in 6 months? Like,
sure.
What's going on? And they're really, really supportive of what I do, and they let me take a couple days off a month to go on the road. And,
yeah.
So it doesn't really conflict right now.
Yeah.
And then I like to stay there for a long time. Like, even if it's in like a less involved capacity, maybe it's just like I have a producer deal there.
Yeah,
just focus
for
on
sure.
comedies instead of being there every day. Maybe I'm only there like 2 days a week, you know?
Yeah. So what happens when all of a sudden there's a sitcom for you? You know.
I just don't really like that stuff, man.
But you're not going to turn it down, would you? Be like, I'd rather perform live.
I have turned down stuff.
Really?
I just like, it's just not really my vibe. I don't, I just like, yeah.
So you have no interest in acting at this point?
I like doing stuff for my Instagram. Like, I filmed like 3 sketches. None of them have been released yet. They're all in post. But I like doing stuff for my Instagram.
Yeah.
You know, I like, my perfect life is just acting in sketches on my Instagram, doing stand-up, touring, and then producing with a company like I'm at now.
Yeah.
That's my perfect life, just having autonomy and
sure.
control, and not worrying if someone likes my face that day, or just I just like living for me and the people who enjoy the stuff I create. You know, I don't like having to go to some network executive and being like this and that and this and that.
Sure.
You know, it's like we have to do it at my job now, which is like, you know, we're one of the top countries in the world. Like, I think we've won 200 Emmys, like 200 Emmys. Dude, we've won 200 Emmys.
Wow.
like 100 Golden Globes and I think like 100 and something Academy Awards, we still have to like placate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
To
get
people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I can only deal with so much of that.
I get that. It's funny because I heard Joe Rogan on his podcast. You know, his first audition ever he booked, and it was news radio for like 8 years. And he was like, I think acting's kind of stupid. And I remember thinking that's so weird because most comics are like, let me dance so I can get on a sitcom. And the fact that you feel that way, you're in good company with Joe Rogan, by the way. So I think that's really cool. And I think there's a lot of integrity to the idea of producing your own stuff and doing stand-up and acting. You know, it can be really divorced from like what you really want to create, what you really want to do.
I just love stand-up, dude.
Yeah.
It's like so pure to me, and
Yeah. And I want to talk about your set tonight too, by the way.
Oh, okay, sure.
Because on the I'm sorry, I just interrupted. What
No,
were you saying?
no.
On the heels of what you talked about earlier, which is so intense, maybe this will be a good way to dismount. So you're talking about you're like, I just went through a breakup. Is that true?
That was in July.
Okay.
So it's relatively old. I wanted to talk about my dad's suicide, but it was too aggressive. I did it on...
Yeah, give yourself some time, maybe.
No, I did. I hadn't been on stage all week, and then on Sunday... How long ago was that? Yeah.
Like 2 days ago?
Oh, no. So, wow.
Yesterday?
Yeah, so the Sunday before that. Dang, dude, already a week went by. That's crazy. Time's been so weird. So basically, right, like after Thanksgiving, right, I flew in. I hadn't been on stage in a week. I flew into LA, landed at 6 p.m. I had a show at the Hollywood Improv at like 7:15. I had to drive straight to the Improv, and I had 2 sets in the main room. And I hadn't been on stage in a week.
Wow.
And I talked about my dad's suicide. I just riffed, dude.
How was it received?
It was interesting. Like I got videos from random people of them crying.
Holy shit.
They were like, "Oh, Vanessa, so inspiring to me." I was like, "Oh, dang, dude." Yeah, I didn't cold open. I hosted the first show, which is aggressive. Hosting a show and opening with suicide material when you've never said it on stage.
Yeah, for sure. And
I
then
hadn't said it on stage
and then
once.
you also have people who are like, "Is she joking? Is that real?"
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so I talked about my dad's suicide for like the first 5 minutes, and then the last 7 I went to the breakup stuff, you know, because I had to be a host. And then the second show, I had 12 minutes, and I just fucking sat in it, dude. I just ripped on my suicide material, and I was like, dang, I was kind of proud of myself because I was like, I've only been doing stand-up for 3 years. I'm on the main room in the Hollywood Improv, and I'm just riffing
on your dad's
suicide. You know what I mean?
That's impressive.
Like,
yeah.
I was like kind of like not proud of myself, but I'm like, wow, I really don't give a fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Do you know how much like you don't? There's comics who've been doing comedy for 10 years that won't do won't do material that's less than like 3 years old at the Hollywood Improv.
Sure.
You know what I mean? No one does new stuff unless you're like Joe Rogan or Dave Chappelle. So I was like, bruh, fuck it. So tonight, you know, I wanted to do the suicide stuff, but I just knew that. I mean, I just started kind of doing spots at the Laugh Factory, and so you know, I did the New Face Showcase a couple weeks ago. This is technically my first spot here, like booked, I think officially by the club or something.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh, I'm cold opening. I have to like do my job, you know?
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do the suicide stuff because I feel like cold opening on a Monday with suicide material is like very aggressive.
20 people.
I was like,
I would say
that's a very bold. And then the factory's kind of like light, you know? I was like, I don't want them to think like, geez, what did we just do, you know?
Yeah.
The floodgates. But so that I was kind of annoyed because I just felt kind of synthetic. Like, why am I talking about this? I have some really good suicide material too, dude. Like
my
death
God.
material. I'm like back to my
Okay,
roots.
give us a good one.
Okay.
With
I'm so excited about it. I mean, it's not worked out, but like I have I basically have this bit about how, like, when you die. Okay, so when you die, you have to pick out their outfit. Okay, well, it's weird talking to you.
I think I saw that on your Instagram. You were like, I'm picking out my
my dad's outfit. I have this whole bit that I've been working on for like the last week about how like the makeup artists are shitty.
Yeah.
When you die, the funeral people are really
The
bad.
embalmers.
Yeah, they're really bad. The shitty makeup people, and I'm like, I just basically shit on them and how bad they are, and how they're like D-list makeup artists, and like how like only the dead will let them do it, and then I have go into this whole thing about how I want like the best makeup artists, and I have this whole bit about how like when I die, I want like fake lashes and it doesn't sound funny yet, but it is.
No, it is funny. It's funny. I can
It's
see
like
it.
making, you know what I mean? I really like it. I like where it can go. You know?
Yeah,
you
for
know when
sure.
you're excited, it's like you feel like
It's
Christopher
great. It's the best
Columbus,
feeling. Yeah, yeah.
And you're like when you have a bit, and you're like, I see like there's like I know there's like I'm going towards the gold rush of California. I don't know how I'm gonna get there. It might be kind of fucked up, but I see there's like a little light in there.
And there's this is uncharted territory. That no one else is doing that material because no one else has your experience really.
Yeah, so I'm excited about it. I'm excited. I'm gonna do it all this week.
That's great. I look forward to seeing it. Listen, Vanessa, thank you so much. Third time is a charm. You're wonderful. I wish we could end on like a big, like dick joke laugh right now. But I think you're obviously a really, really brilliant woman and really smart. You're doing great things. So, what can you plug? What can you tell people that you're on and that you're doing?
When was this coming out?
I don't know. We'll see.
It's probably gonna be a bit, right?
Huh?
Well, I'm not gonna like plug shows this week because it's not gonna come out this week, right?
No, maybe something in the next few weeks or I don't know. Even just your Instagram handle.
Yeah, just follow me on Instagram at Vanessa V Johnston.
Vanessa V Johnston. Who's this Vanessa Johnston bitch that took your handle?
I know, dude. Fuck that hoe. They took it on Twitter too. I have to have my name as Vanessa Johnston with 2 O's.
Yeah.
It's like some bitch that rides horses in New Zealand. I'm like, yo, you don't even matter.
So one last thing I want to ask you, because you had a clip from your Instagram posted on the Laugh Factory Instagram, on the Laugh Factory, and then I had one too. You have like 50 million more views than me because right away people are like, we love this girl. But also that lends itself to a lot of haters. Do internet haters, do they bug you? Do you read the comments? Do you care?
Were there internet haters on the video?
They're always going to be, yeah.
Well, I know I saw some people were like, women aren't funny. And I'm like, okay, well, who cares?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got like a lot of followers from it. I probably got like 3,000.
Yeah,
which is
for
good
sure.
for like 24 hours, you know?
Of course, yeah.
And a lot of them are women.
Yeah.
And that's all I care about, dude. I don't need to please everyone. It's like being a musician, you know?
Yeah.
Like, not everyone loves Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And not everyone loves, the fucking Slipknot. But you just, the people that like that kind of music, you stick to it.
Yeah.
So that's all it's like.
And
not
so you
everyone
like the
it.
fact that you're kind of paving the way for women and representing what it means to be like a strong woman in the business.
For sure,
yeah,
dude. Just be like authentic. That's what's important to me. And not apologizing for like your feelings as a woman, and not apologizing for like your behavior as a woman. Just like fuck it, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not everyone has to like me, and I don't care.
It doesn't bug you. So one last question: if you became a real, and I think there's a very great chance it will happen, you become a real influencer, you have a lot of power. In what avenue do you think you would give back? Like, is there something that you think, this is where, if I became so powerful that I was a mogul, this is where I would take my energy outside of myself? Is there something that you...
I think there's a way to do that in stand-up. I just want to get... there's moments... my goal is to just... I'm going to get emotional about it. It's crazy. This is like the thing I get emotional about, like not my suicide or all this stuff. Is like, I want to get to a place where I just give 100% of myself on stage to people, like 100%. I still haven't gotten to that place yet.
Well, I mean, very few people do.
Yeah, I just want to give 100% of who I am as like a human. And it doesn't mean energy. It doesn't mean like blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Just like no walls. Just like give you 100% of who I am as a human. And I feel like there's something in there that influences people, because then they feel that, and then it lets them kind of be themselves too.
For sure.
I don't know, dude. I love kids. I volunteer with kids right now.
Oh, wow.
I haven't been doing it as much recently just because my schedule's so crazy. But, yeah, dude, just be like a good human. I want to figure it out. I want to figure it out. I don't have a particular plan, but
yeah. Well, you're killing it. You're doing great. I mean, in both avenues. So, I'm psyched. I hope that we can be friends, Vanessa. I think you're rad. So, thank you so much once again. Check her out. Vanessa V Johnston on Instagram and Twitter.
Twitter is Vanessa Johnston, but you don't need to follow Twitter.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for listening, and this is Bill Dawes signing off from the Afterlaugh.
It's the Afterlaugh, Afterlaugh. Welcome to the Afterlaugh, Afterlaugh, Afterlaugh. Afterlaugh, man. Go ahead, pull up a chair.